Good evening to all our guests in Australia and good afternoon to our friends in Israel. My name is Ron Finkel and I'm the president of Hadassah Australia. And we are very pleased to be sponsoring in this event this evening. Specifically to our friends in Israel, we want to say thank you to them for making themselves available on a day when our collective focus is on the unfolding events in the region and the very sad news of lives lost on both sides. We can only hope that efforts to de-escalate the conflict will be successful and rapid. History has shown us that conflict resolves nothing. The pathway to peace comes through dialogue and engagement. Hadassah has been and remains an island of calm and an often turbulent sea in the region. And it's the values of Hadassah and the vision of the legendary Zionist leader Henrietta Zold that has motivated Hadassah Australia to adopt the Ethiopian Health Scholarship Program, an initiative that's providing a pathway to socio and economic advancement for young adults in the Israeli-Ethiopian community. Our program, which is a joint venture with the Israeli NGO Laofek, the Hebrew University, and the Israeli government, is also a significant contributor to addressing Israel's severe shortage of graduate nurses and occupational therapists. For us, living in the diaspora, the Hadassah Australia Ethiopian Health Scholarship Program offers a direct and impactful way of addressing the needs of a disadvantaged community in Israel, while at one and the same time filling an identified serious gap in Israeli healthcare. How good it is that two positive outcomes come from the one program. Our first guest this evening is Dr. Rely Alon. Rely is the director of the nursing department at the Hadassah Medical Organization in Jerusalem. Good evening, Rely.
Good evening.
Hi. Rely, I'd like to ask you if you could give us some context on the situation in Israel regarding the demand for graduate nurses.
Israel really needs more nurses. The thing is that today we are really after the COVID. We have to struggle the COVID and to work a lot. A lot of nurses went inside the departments to work, and the hospital was full with patients, not COVID patients. So we have a lot of necessary for nurses, and especially for nurses that had the course of ICU. Because we know about the COVID, we need a lot of nurses with very high quality. So each one who's coming to learn to be a nurse and the post-based learning, so the course of ICU is very, very important. For Hadassah, I'm telling you about the numbers, in Australia, the numbers in 2018 in Australia was 13.2 nurse for 1,000 patients. In Israel, the numbers are half of it, almost half, five nurses for 1,000 patients. So the numbers are really incredible. The situation, Australia is really different because Israel is very, very tiny. We live here together, Jews and Arabs and Ethiopian, and everyone, we are together at the same area. And the situation needs more nurses. But Israel, many years didn't give enough money to the Ministry of Health that should increase the numbers of the nurses. Only the last 3 years, the numbers are increasing, and we are trying to achieve more 1,000 nurses each year to our numbers. Hadassah School of Nursing, and Sarit is the head of the school. In the last 3 years that Sarit is the head of the school, increasing the numbers that the graduate the nursing school. It's the best school in Israel. The staff is very high qualified, and we are very, very proud of our school. And together, me and Sarit are working together to achieve the goals, the vision of Hadassah, and we're trying to do the best that the nurses of Hadassah that graduate the school of this particular school of nursing will stay in Hadassah and work in Hadassah, because we need more nurses in Israel and Hadassah for sure.
So the COVID experience highlighted for you that there were a significant issue with nurses, or it's been a constant issue and COVID was just another example?
No, the COVID was not another example, it was the example. We didn't deal with this situation many years, like in the COVID. Hadassah was the first to open. We have the highest numbers all over Israel, the numbers of the COVID patients. We have during the COVID, we have something around, I think, more than 4,000 patients, 4,500 patients during the whole COVID period of time. And the nurses work very hard. We are, in this time, we went, we teach other people, other nurses in Israel, how to deal with the COVID. We make, today, and my nurse of Hadassah went to Buenos Aires, to Argentina, to teach their doctors and nurses how to teach how to work with COVID. And we really bridge for peace for all over the world, how to treat COVID. The doctors, the nurses, all of us, we give our knowledge to whoever who wants to. And this, and we saw how the nurses work very hard, because we are shortage with nurses in Israel. And we saw how much the necessary of very high qualified nurses in this period of time, because it really was very hard times in Israel, and I hope it won't be again. But the shortage of nursing is very, we see it very in a very high position here in Israel.
Thank you very much, Rely. So we've established the issue of the need, and I would like to now move to introduce Professor Guy Harpaz, who is the Dean of Students at the Hebrew University, and really wanted to understand, Guy, good evening, where are you? We've got you?
Good evening. Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. So, Guy, I wanted to ask you if you could explain to us, from your perspective, the challenges that students coming into the Hebrew University system, and specifically into the nursing scholarship, the nursing program, the challenges that Ethiopian-Israelis young students are facing when they embark on an undergraduate career, and how you as the Hebrew University have evolved strategies to assist them and to facilitate them to be successful.
Yes, excuse me for the maybe oversimplified account, but generally speaking, most of the students who arrive to this program come from the periphery of the state of Israel. They come from non-privileged economic backgrounds. They study in high schools, not in the best high schools of Israel. Many times they do not have the awareness about the variability to come to the Hebrew University. Some of them do not have this subjective feeling of competence to overcome the challenges, and most of them come from, actually they are the first generation for education. So the starting point is highly challenging. And I believe that Achotenu is a win-win situation, in the sense that it's a win for the students, it's a win for the families, it's a win for the Ethiopian community, it's a win for the medical profession of the state of Israel. It's a win for the state of Israel, and it's a big win for the Hebrew University. And I believe that our ability to overcome these challenges is connected to three essential dimensions of the program. The first is about admissions. I see that I'm here recorded, so I should be careful about my words, but when you come to admission at the Hebrew University, we usually see numbers as opposed to human beings. We check the matriculation exams, the psychometric exams, we do the average, and then we decide whether to admit or reject. Here we do the exact opposite. We see the human beings by providing a tailor-made individual examination in order to detect those with amazing potential, but with the low grades from schools, etc., psychometric results due to the non-privileged background. So this is the first element, the very ability to detect the best students with the best potentials, but those who wouldn't otherwise overcome the high threshold of admission of the Hebrew University. The second element, the cumulative element, is the preparatory year. We provide each and every student a year of mechina, and during this very intensive year, we provide each and every student with all the tools, academic tools and soft tools in order to overcome the academic challenge. And the third element is the entire degree. Throughout the degree, we have a very, very intensive program with a very, very large and supportive envelope. So we provide academic assistance, we provide financial assistance, we provide assistance when it comes to dormitories, we provide the emotional assistance, and there's a designated person, Michal, who actually looks after each and every student and assists each and every student to overcome the challenges. And I believe, and this is my subjective and non-modest account of my perception, is that I believe that these elements, when put together, they provide great success. And I believe that this is not just blah blah or rhetoric or lip service, but the data proves that these students actually succeed very much, and the dropout rate is very, very, very low in absolute terms, and certainly when compared with other Ethiopian students at the Hebrew University and elsewhere. So again, I'm not objective, but I think that we can be very, very proud of our students and about this Masa and about this very impressive journey from these very non-privileged backgrounds to this amazing degree. And we should never forget, we find the best students, we provide them with the best education in the best nursing school in Israel, and then we allow them to acquire a very, very solid and wanted profession in Israel. And if I may conclude with a personal note, I'm now finishing my first term as the Dean of Students of the Hebrew University. And as a Dean of Students, you are involved with thousands and thousands of students and dozens and dozens and dozens of impressive projects. But I believe that if I would have been asked what was the most game changer project, or most of which I'm most proud, I believe I would identify Achotenu as the project. So I'm very happy to be involved, and I'm very happy each year to receive the rector's mail notifying me that the Hebrew University would continue to support. Would be another cohort. So I'm very, very proud, and I'm very, very happy to be with you.
Well, that's very, Guy, I wanted to thank you because you closed with a question I was going to ask you, which is the commitment of the Hebrew University to this program. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I understood from your last statement that the Hebrew University is truly committed to this ongoing project and committed to ensure that the pathway is provided to these students. Is that, am I putting words in your mouth, or is that?
No, not at all. It's an absolute commitment. And actually, when I asked my rector and the Dean of Medicine about the very presence here, because I'm not accustomed to take part in events not belonging to the Hebrew University, and I asked them, am I allowed to participate? And they actually did not understand the question. For them, it was an obvious answer, and they were very pleased to hear that I would be with you. So yes, absolute commitment, and I hope that we would have more and more and more cohorts of successful students.
Thank you, Guy. It has been great to hear, on the one hand, from Rely, the framing of the need, and from Guy to get a sense of the engagement that the Hebrew University has with the delivery of the program. Now we have the privilege of meeting Dr. Sarit Shimoni Kennett, who is the director of the Henrietta Zold Hadassah Hebrew University School of Nursing, and someone who is very much at the front line of addressing these two issues, the Israeli need for more nurses and providing a nurturing environment for the Ethiopian Israeli students who are coming through. So Sarit, I'd like to just get your perspective on how things are for this group of students, particularly as within a few weeks' time, less than a month, the students who began their journey as the first cohort in October 2016 will be graduating. And perhaps you could give us a little bit of an insight into that journey, both what you sense it's meant for the students themselves, but also for what it has meant for you and your team as you have worked to build this program.
All right, thank you, Ron. We are very, very excited. I've put the students' pictures here because they are the first cohort who is actually graduating, and they are part of our 100 cohorts of our School of Nursing, the first one in the region since Henrietta Zold founded the school. I will answer your question, I think, mostly through the social level, the social discussion. As Guy just mentioned, we need to know that the students that were picked for that program are the pillars of their families. They are the strong figures in their families, and we actually see that when they come to study in our university. Many of challenges that they faced with their families are sometimes shifted towards their studies. So giving tuition and giving them the ability to have dormitories and be able to cut their families and focus mostly on studies is very helpful. We found that over the 5 years that we're tracking this program, that it's very meaningful for them to have the quiet and the time and the space, even a room and a table, just to sit and study quietly. We learned over the years that these students bring very special qualities that maybe us, the Israeli, who are very, we do everything and we say everything, and suddenly we have a group of people who are more quiet, more shy, but they bring into our clinicals and working with patients, they bring in qualities that are very needed in nursing and are very special. For instance, empathy and listening to the other and being able to include, inclusion of the other. Very sensitive to culture differences. They perform very well on few things. When I compare them to other students that we have, and we have other programs, special programs, students from Achotenu, first, the dropout rates are very low, are lower than the usual group. We have a student coordinator, Irit Sorek, who is working with the group from day one they enter the school until they graduate. We keep very close tracking of them, the success in their studies, their troubles or needs that they have, and we try together with them to bring out the solutions to enable them to bring the best of their abilities. Another thing is that they're very good, as I mentioned, with personal connection, and they do very well on the clinical settings, clinical studies. They interact magnificently with the health staff and with patients, and they have very, very high grades, higher than the average students in our programs. As a whole, I think that the most significant thing here is knowing that each student that enters our program and hopefully is also ending the program will become a nurse in Israel. So Rely mentioned the need in Israel for these nurses, but I also think there's a social part to our country, that we enable certain social, they come from, usually from low social backgrounds. So we enable each student that enters that program and becomes a nurse, we actually elevate a whole family. So the donation that is given here is making an immense impact on not just that student, but his whole, his parents, brothers and sisters. He's a role model to nieces and nieces, and he's a role model to the community. And it helps personally for that family and that student, but also I think it's a great program for Israel as a country. If you have more questions.
So, Sarit, that is an incredible overview of your perspective as the head of the program, of how these students have both navigated their way through it, but also how they have performed and the kind of impact that they themselves will have as they graduate from this magnificent program, the first cohort. And just to clarify for everybody, there are currently 4 cohorts actually in the undergraduate program, and those who are on this call who are existing donors, you are with Hadassah Australia. We are the sponsor of the whole of the cohort 4 and partnering with the government and the Hebrew University, and so it's a real privilege to be part of this journey.
We currently have 64 students. I didn't mention we have 64 students, which is great.
It's fantastic, wonderful. Thank you, Sarit. Now, I would like to pass on now to Judy Lowey. Judy is the Senior Director of La'ofek. La'ofek is the Israeli NGO that saw this opportunity and really was the catalyst for making it happen. And I would like to give Judy the opportunity to give us a little bit of insight into La'ofek, but also the kind of background and challenges that the Ethiopian-Israeli community is facing, and the context out of which these students have grown. And then also, Judy, I'll put you on notice, just want to ask you also how nursing and occupational therapy came to be identified as pathways for socioeconomic development and for this community. So Judy, over to you.
Thank you, Ron. I can't begin speaking without thanking you and Rosemary and all of Hadassah Australia and all of you wonderful people who have already donated to us, who are expressing an interest in donating, and also our partners, the School of Nursing, the Hebrew University. Without all of you, this program wouldn't happen. So a huge, huge thank you. I don't have enough words to thank everybody. La'ofek, as you said, is an Israeli non-profit. Its full name is La'ofek Tikva La'atid, which means to the horizon, hope for the future. And our mission is to help people who are at moments of weakness or vulnerability in their lives. And the way that we believe we have to help them is through education and employment. We are basically based on what the Rambam says, which is that the highest level of assistance you can give to a human being is to make that human being self-sufficient, not to give handouts, not to give them the fish, but to give them the fishing rod. And this is what La'ofek is about. Way back in 2013, we decided that we wanted to help the Ethiopian-Israeli community with a focus on the young people, because unfortunately a lot of the older generation don't speak Hebrew, and therefore they are, it's very difficult to help them with education or employment. And the reason we wanted to focus on them is that even today, all these years after Many of them made Aliyah, even though in our program today, we have people who have been in Israel. We have students who've been here for less than 10 years. Almost a third of the Ethiopian-Israeli population lives under the poverty line. Most are working in blue-collar jobs with very little social assistance and job uncertainty. Studies have shown, and we all know, that the best way of helping to break the cycle of poverty is through studying and through thereby gaining employment which is on a higher level and which is more secure. We weren't sure in which direction to go, so at that point we brought in Michal, who's also here on the Zoom, and Michal is the director of the Achotenu program, and she came to us thankfully with a lot of experience in employment issues for the Ethiopian population. And she ran a survey, an informal survey amongst young Ethiopians, because what was important to us was to know what is it that these young people would like to study, that at the same time would provide them with economic security for the future. The answer that came back was that most of the young Ethiopians, especially the women, expressed their desire to be in a profession that helped people. A lot of them said nurses, but even without them saying nursing, when we began looking at what they were saying, it was actually a no-brainer, because nursing was the one profession that stood out, which was critically needed in Israel, as has already been said, and would provide them with job security. And in fact, I remember a conversation I had at the time with the founder and chairman of LAOFEC, who is called Rabbi Rimon. And I remember him saying to me, Judy, I'm willing to go on a new project to help the young Ethiopians, but I want there to be 100% placement at the end of their studies. And I raised an eyebrow and said to Rabbi Rimon, I said, 100%? I said, I don't know if we can have 100%, even if we get 80%, that would be good. He said, no, I want 100%. And I think with nursing, we actually are fulfilling that, because I don't know of any nurses who can't find a job. There's always a job for a nurse. That was way back in 2013. And to make a long story short, we then had to say, okay, if there's all these young people who want to study nursing or something that will help people, why aren't they studying it? We had to examine the barriers, and the barriers to the program were, number one, primarily financial, and number two, the acceptance requirements. And it's been mentioned in passing here that in order to get into university in Israel, you need to have a very high score on something called the psychometric exams. And reams have been written about this, and unfortunately this exam is culturally biased. And the young Ethiopian-Israelis across the board are scoring less than their Israeli counterparts, and we're just not being accepted to university. At that point, we had to make a decision, and we decided to try and prove that the psychometric high scores were not essential to succeeding in nursing studies. And we ran a small pilot with 11 young Ethiopian women in the center of the country. None of them had the psychometric. They were accepted as exceptions. And suffice it to say that all of them passed with flying colors. 2 were called mitzdainot, which means cum laude, and I think that should be summa cum laude. I think I've got it the wrong way around. And sorry.
Top students, honors students, it's fine.
Honors students, 2 were honors students. And it was such a success that that with that we were able to then approach the Hebrew University, Hadassah School of Nursing, and then the miracle occurred that we got agreement that our students would be, the Achotenu students would be accepted to this program without the psychometric requirement, which was really the breakthrough. And as has been said, the first group began in 2016, and they're about to graduate. And the program is succeeding in cooperation with a wonderful staff at the School of Nursing and at Hebrew University. And the main reasons the program is succeeding with a very, very low attrition rate. And here I want to say that I am myself am not a nurse, but I hear from everybody that nursing studies are not easy. They are very, very difficult, and they require a tremendous amount of intensive study. And the main reasons that the program is succeeding is, number one, financial. We're able to provide wraparound financial services so the students don't have to pay for their studies. They are given dormitories, they're given a small living stipend, which means that they don't have to work during their studies, which is very, very important. They can just concentrate on their studies. So this is one reason why it's succeeding. Number two, it's succeeding because as was mentioned, there is Irit and also Michal, who are hands-on with the students, who are nipping any problems in the bud. And this is very, very important. If they see a student is slipping, what is the problem? Try and find out, try and solve the problem, and so on. And
Judy,
this is preventing the attrition rate.
So Judy, that I wanted just to ask you before we finish one question. I'd like you just to give us a sense of what it meant for the students during COVID to have to continue their studies, most of them living at home. Was that something that they managed? But was it trying? Was it easy? How did that happen?
Okay, at the beginning, it was a very good question. At the beginning, it was very difficult. The dorms were closed, the students went home. Their conditions at home were not at all conducive to studying, and all the studying became remote on their computers, some on their cell phones. And at the beginning, extremely difficult. I remember hearing from Michal that she was on the phone with many of them several times a day, trying to encourage them. And eventually they did it. They managed to overcome whatever difficulties they had, and they continued their studies, and there were no dropouts as a rate of that. They did it. And I just want to add that one of the students don't have to do the psychometric, but they do have to do what's called the First-in exams. And there's another exam that we created to give them, which tests their motivation. And I believe that this is very, very important, because we're basically telling students, you have to leave home for 5 years, do a year mechina, 4 years at university, very hard studies. And if a student isn't motivated, they're not going to do it.
I think that's a very, very important point, that you're really focusing on two key characteristics, attitude and aptitude. And
Correct.
I think that those clearly are there in spades amongst these cohorts of students. Judy, thank you very, very much, but don't go away, because we may need you as a help in the translation. I want to move now to introduce some of our students, and I think this is where the rubber hits the road, and we're really actually not talking with an overview, but we're really the really living example. Now, I believe we have Leah Zemen. Is that correct? We've got Leah?
Yeah.
Hello, Leah. Okay. Leah, excuse me, everybody, I just want to demonstrate my Hebrew. So it's a bit of a schwitz, so let me do that first. Leah, את מעדיפה לדבר בעברית או באנגלית?
It's okay. I can speak in English.
All right. So we'll move on. If there's any issue, I have Judy on standby to help with translations. So Leah is a member of the first cohort of students that began in October 2016, and within the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, Leah is graduating. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
Leah,
Yeah.
so perhaps you could give us some introduction about yourself, your personal background, when your family came to Israel, Kind of a little bit of an insight into the challenges that you, the family, have faced, and then what attracted you to a career in nursing?
Okay, first, yeah, I will introduce myself. I'm Lia Zemana. I'm 28 years old, and I made an aliyah before 10 years with my family from Ethiopia. And I've been in the army. I was in the Hoveshet, Tafkid Hoveshet. I don't know how to say it in Hebrew. In English.
תגידי עוד פעם, ליה, חובשת?
Okay.
Yeah, she was a medic. She was a medic in the army.
Yeah, and I have one sister and one brother. And my sister is she's learning in Tel Aviv University. She's a nursing program. So I'm one of the first children to be in the university. And at first, because my Hebrew, I had a bit difficulties because of my Hebrew, so I couldn't do psychometry. So when I get this chance, this opportunity, Achotenu, I was so happy because it was worth it to do 1 year mechina and 4 years of learning. And I think without this opportunity, without this program, I wouldn't be able to be in this place today. And first, I would want to say thank you for this opportunity. And yeah, it's been good because I could concentrate in my learning without any financial problem. And I think not only me, but all of my friends would. כאילו, אני יכולה לדבר בעברית?
כן, דברי, בסדר.
ללא בעיות, שום בעיות כלכליות, כאילו יכולנו לשבת באמת ללמוד כמו שצריך, בלי בעיות, לא רק אני, גם כל החברים שלי, באמת כאילו זה אחד הדברים הכי טובים שעשיתי בחיים שלי, וזה באמת כאילו תודה כאילו להזדמנות הזאת, כי באמת בלי האחותנו, אני לא חושבת שאני אהיה במקום הזה היום, וכאילו לא רק אני, גם המשפחה שלי, כאילו אני הראשונה שבאמת כאילו עכשיו בעזרת השם אני מסיימת תואר.
Just a second, we have to Leah's explaining with a great deal of enthusiasm how the scholarship has been the key, literally the key, right, to ensuring this pathway to learning, without which the economic support that it provides, not only to her, but to all her friends, the impact it has had on them and on their families has been unbelievable. And she said she has absolutely no doubt that without this program, she would never have got to the position she is today, and to be given the opportunities going forward that she has. And for that, she is extremely, I would use the word eternally grateful to those that have made it possible for her to do this degree.
I'm very grateful.
Okay, so Leah, that is fantastic. Now we go from Leah, who is a representative of the first cohort, to Esther and Sivan, who are the newest cohort, who are just about finishing their mechina. So Sivan, shalom Sivan.
היי, שלום.
סיוון, בעברית או אנגלית, או את רוצה שנתרגם?
אפשר לעשות את שתיהם, נראה לי אפשר באנגלית, ומקסימום אני אעזור בעברית.
Let's try with English, it's great. If you can manage, yes, don't worry, we'll cover for you. So, Sivan, give us a little bit of an idea of your background and how you were made aware of this program and why you wanted to become a nurse.
I'm not.
You're an occupational therapist. Sorry,
yes,
no, an occupational therapist. Yes,
yeah.
Both Sivan and Esther, who are here as our guests, who are in the 5th cohort, are both doing the stream, which will be occupational therapy, which is part of our health undergraduate program for Ethiopian students. So Sivan, back to you.
Yes, my parents came to Israel, did Aliyah a few months before Shlomo operation, and I was born and raised here in Israel. You hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I hear myself twice. Okay. And then they started to live here, and they didn't go to school. So my parents are not education. And then my mother passed away a few years ago. So back in the high school, I wasn't a great student because I had to do my things at home, and I felt that I have it's my duty and obligation to take care of my brother and sisters, and so I wasn't taking care of my grades. So when I tried to, after I finished my army, I tried to go to study, and I tried to do psychometry, and it wasn't so easy as I thought. So I started to look for programs, and I found the Achotenu program. First, I was looking for a nurse because that was something that was interesting me too. And then I saw that there is going to be something about a program about occupational therapy, which I thought to do too. And I think that's it. So I tried to apply myself to the program, and here I am.
Very good. And Sivan, we want to wish you every success as you embark on this journey.
Thank
and
you.
we'll be there throughout to support you and your fellow students as you embark on this career in occupational therapy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final student guest is Esther Wasi. Esther, I guess I have the same questions for you as we had for Sivan, just to give us a little bit of an idea about your background and how you found about this program and what motivates you to embark on this career as an occupational therapist. And be little, but it's okay.
In the same way, if I wouldn't know how to say it, I will speak in Hebrew, okay?
Okay, no problem.
And
Sure.
if you don't understand my accent or if I'm speaking too fast, tell me, okay?
Okay.
So my name is Esther. I'm 27 years old. Today I have a birthday, actually. So,
Happy birthday.
thank you. So I didn't know what I want to study. First, I have six siblings. We are living in a small city in the center. I didn't know what I wanted to study because I don't have any. I have small people that can show, like I don't have a lot of examples in my life for jobs or something like that because my parents came from Ethiopia. They didn't study anything. They don't have any idea almost about anything. So I was looking for things that I think that can interest me. And I was looking for myself, let's say it like this. So I went to a few people that can, אנשים שיעצו לי, יועץ לימודים.
Advisors, people who would advise you.
Yeah, and we found out that I want to work with people. That is the most important thing for me, to work with people. I love to work with people. I don't like office and this kind of stuff. So הלכנו בדרך הזאת, ובסופו של דבר החלטתי שאני רוצה לעשות או ריפוי בעיסוק או קלינאי תקשורת.
So Esther went down this particular path, and at the end she decided she wanted to do either occupational therapy or
קלינאי תקשורת.
Communications. Yeah, so we're lucky you decided to become an occupational therapist, okay.
ואז כן, התחלתי לברר לגבי כל אחד, I started to to check what I need for each one of them in all the universities. And I found out that it's really hard to get to these programs. I didn't know what I'm going to do. And suddenly someone that I went to La Ye'utzita sent me a message, you don't understand, we have a great program for you, you can get in, I promise you, try, go. And I told her, okay, I will try, I'm not sure I can do it, but I know I'm smart, but I don't know, it's really hard and I don't have the grades. So in the end, I get in, and now I'm in the Mechina. I believe in myself, and they are here for us, all the girls, Michal and Yona, and you don't know Yona. And it's a great program, so really thank you. I hope I get in, I'm sure I'm getting, but thank you. It's important to say it.
Thank you, Esther, and thank you, Leah, and thank you to Sivan. Thank you. Well, look, I will take the opportunity to say thank you to two groups. One, those who gave us their time and insights into these programs and have made this evening such a meaningful experience for us. And second, I want to say thank you to all of those who are on the call, and those who will see this video, those who have been central to making this program happen, and through their support are giving these young students a chance to live their dream and to provide pathways for success, but also to play a critically important role, as you heard, in addressing a clear and evident need in Israeli healthcare. And I think we feel that it's a privilege, and Hadassah Australia really does feel it's an absolute privilege to be able to be part of something that is making a difference in Israel, and to be so directly involved with each and every one of these students. And this is a program that is not common for people to be given the chance to support. And I thank every one of the supporters out who are on the call and who are out there who are making this happen. And on that note, I think we can say good evening, and for the Israelis, good day.